The relentless pace of modern existence has left countless individuals feeling perpetually drained, as though the very energy needed to meet daily responsibilities is being depleted faster than it can be replenished through rest, recreation, or even the most well-intentioned self-care practices. Yet this pervasive exhaustion that characterizes contemporary life points toward a profound spiritual reality that Sri Aurobindo understood with remarkable clarity. We are attempting to sustain ourselves through sources of energy that are ultimately finite and external, rather than learning to draw upon the inexhaustible wellspring of divine consciousness that exists within the depths of our own being. This silent power doesn't announce itself through dramatic phenomena or supernatural experiences, but operates as the subtle foundation that sustains all existence, including our individual lives, and becomes accessible to anyone willing to learn the art of conscious connection with their deepest spiritual nature. The exhaustion we experience isn't merely physical fatigue that can be resolved through better sleep or nutrition, though these certainly play important roles in our overall well-being. More fundamentally, it represents what we might call soul fatigue, the weariness that accumulates when we live disconnected from the deeper sources of meaning, purpose, and vital energy that can only be accessed through conscious relationship with the divine presence that constitutes our essential nature. When we attempt to meet life's demands solely through personal will, mental planning, and emotional effort, we inevitably deplete our limited human resources and find ourselves running on empty. Regardless of how hard we try to manage our time, optimize our schedules, or improve our productivity strategies, this understanding revolutionizes our entire approach to energy and vitality, revealing that true strength doesn't come from forcing ourselves to do more with less, but from learning to align our activities and attitudes with the infinite creative intelligence that flows through all existence and seeks expression through our unique circumstances and capabilities. The divine consciousness that Sri Aurobindo describes is not a distant deity or abstract concept, but the very life force that animates our bodies, the awareness that makes experience possible, and the love that draws us toward authentic connection with others and meaningful contribution to the world around us. When we learn to recognize and consciously participate in this deeper reality, our entire relationship with energy and effort transforms from struggle and depletion to flow and renewal. The silent quality of this divine power reflects its fundamental nature as the peaceful substrate from which all activity emerges and to which it returns, like waves arising from and dissolving back into the ocean. This silence is not empty absence, but pregnant fullness, dynamic stillness that contains infinite potential for creative expression, whilst remaining eternally centered and unperturbed by the changing forms through which it manifests. Learning to access this silent power doesn't require withdrawal from active engagement with life's responsibilities, but rather discovering how to remain connected to this deeper source, whilst participating fully in whatever circumstances and relationships require our attention and care. The practical implications of this understanding become evident when we recognize that the very activities that seem to drain our energy can become opportunities for drawing upon divine strength when approached with appropriate consciousness and intention. The household chores that feel overwhelming when performed from obligation and resentment become sources of meditation and service when approached as expressions of care for the environments that support our daily lives. The challenging conversations that exhaust us when approached from defensive ego become opportunities for practicing patience and compassion when met from the stillness that remains unaffected by others' emotional turbulence or critical judgments. Perhaps most importantly, this approach reveals that exhaustion often signals not personal inadequacy or poor time management, but rather the soul's invitation to discover more sustainable and authentic ways of engaging with life that honor both our human limitations and our divine potential. The chronic tiredness that accompanies trying to be everything to everyone dissolves when we learn to act from clear discernment about what truly serves our deepest purpose and the genuine needs of those we care about. The emotional depletion that results from constantly managing others' moods and reactions transforms when we develop the capacity to remain loving and supportive whilst allowing others the dignity of their own emotional processes and learning experiences. This transformation doesn't happen overnight or through wishful thinking, but through patient cultivation of practices and attitudes that gradually attune our consciousness to the deeper rhythms and energies that sustain all life. The morning moments of conscious breathing before rising from bed become opportunities to align with the peace and vitality that renewed itself during sleep. The brief pauses between activities become chances to reconnect with the silence that remains present beneath all mental chatter and emotional fluctuation. Even the most demanding periods of intense activity become sustainable when approached from conscious participation in the divine. Creativity that seeks expression through our unique talents and circumstances. The quality of energy that emerges through this connection possesses characteristics that no amount of caffeine, stimulation, or forced motivation can provide. It's renewable because it connects us with inexhaustible source rather than finite personal resources. It's peaceful because it operates from harmony rather than conflict between different aspects of our nature. And it's sustainable because it enhances rather than depletes our capacity for genuine care and effective action. Unlike approaches to energy management that require constant vigilance and effort to maintain, drawing strength from divine consciousness becomes increasingly natural and effortless as we develop familiarity with this deeper dimension of our being and learn to trust its guidance and support in all aspects of our daily existence. The process of learning to draw strength from divine consciousness begins with recognizing that the exhaustion we experience often stems from the unconscious belief that we must generate all the energy needed for our responsibilities through personal effort and individual resources alone. This misconception creates tremendous internal pressure and anxiety because it places impossible demands upon our finite human capacities, whilst cutting us off from the infinite source of vitality and wisdom that is always available when we learn to receive, rather than constantly trying to produce everything through our own limited strength. The shift from self-generated effort to conscious reception of divine support doesn't make us passive or ineffective, but rather enables us to act with greater clarity, efficiency, and sustainability because our activities become expressions of universal intelligence rather than ego-driven striving. This receptive approach transforms our entire relationship with rest and renewal, revealing that true restoration happens not merely through stopping activity, but through reconnecting with the deeper currents of peace and vitality that flow beneath the surface turbulence of daily concerns and responsibilities. The brief moments of conscious stillness that we integrate throughout the day become more refreshing than hours of distracted leisure activity because they restore our connection to the source rather than merely providing temporary escape from demands. The quality of presence that develops through regular attunement to divine consciousness naturally creates more harmonious and effective engagement with whatever tasks and relationships require our attention. The practical application of this understanding involves learning to recognize the difference between activities that connect us with divine energy and those that drain us through unconscious participation in patterns of stress, competition, and fear-based motivation. When we approach our work as conscious service to purposes larger than personal advancement or financial security, even demanding projects become opportunities to discover creative solutions and collaborative relationships that energize rather than exhaust us. When we engage with family responsibilities from genuine care rather than obligation or guilt, the energy we invest in supporting others' well-being returns to us multiplied through the satisfaction, and connection that emerge from authentic loving service. Perhaps most significantly, this approach reveals that the divine consciousness we seek to access is not separate from us, but is actually our deepest identity. The aware presence that observes all thoughts, emotions, and experiences without being limited or defined by any of them. This recognition dissolves the effort and struggle involved in trying to contact something external to ourselves, replacing it with the simple practice of remembering and resting in what we already are beneath all the conditioned patterns and reactive habits that create the sense of separation and struggle. The silent power becomes accessible not through acquiring new capabilities, but through releasing the mental and emotional noise that obscures our natural connection to this deeper dimension of consciousness. The sustainability of this approach becomes evident as we discover that living from conscious connection to divine source actually increases our capacity for meeting life's demands, whilst decreasing the stress and depletion that characterize approaches based solely on personal will and effort. The mother caring for young children discovers that moments of conscious breathing and prayer throughout the day provide more restoration than extended periods of escape or entertainment. The individual managing multiple responsibilities learns that brief periods of inner stillness between tasks create greater efficiency and clarity than rushing from one activity to another without pause for centering and intent. The quality of action that emerges from this connection possesses characteristics that distinguish it clearly from activity driven by anxiety, ambition, or external pressure. Decisions arise more easily because they emerge from intuitive understanding, rather than mental analysis of competing options. Communication becomes more effective because it comes from genuine care and clear perception, rather than defensive reactivity or manipulative strategies. Creative solutions appear naturally because consciousness is no longer restricted by habitual patterns of thinking, but can access the infinite intelligence that operates beyond personal knowledge and experience. The ripple effects of this transformation extend far beyond personal energy management to influence the quality of all our relationships and contributions to family and community well-being. Others sense when they're interacting with someone who operates from inner peace and authentic presence, rather than stress and emotional reactivity. Children feel safer and more supported when cared for by adults who remain connected to their own deeper source of stability and love, rather than being overwhelmed by the demands of parenting. Colleagues and friends appreciate working and socializing with someone who brings calm energy and genuine attention to shared activities, rather than adding to collective stress through anxiety or competitiveness. Moreover, this approach addresses the spiritual bypassing that can occur when people use meditation or spiritual practices to escape from legitimate responsibilities, rather than developing the capacity to meet these responsibilities from greater consciousness and authentic care. Drawing strength from divine consciousness enhances rather than diminishes our effectiveness in worldly affairs because it aligns our individual will with the universal intelligence that orchestrates all existence according to patterns of harmony and creative evolution that serve the well-being of all life rather than narrow personal interests alone. The community dimension of this practice becomes particularly important as we recognize that individual connection to divine consciousness naturally creates conditions that support others' access to the same source of peace and vitality. The household where one person maintains regular connection to inner silence gradually becomes more harmonious as this quality of consciousness influences family dynamics and communication patterns. The workplace where someone operates from authentic presence and conscious service often experiences improved morale and collaborative effectiveness as others respond to this example by accessing their own deeper capacities for creative contribution and mutual support. There's something deeply moving about recognizing that the poverty, exhaustion, and overwhelm that drive us to seek better solutions are actually invitations from our own souls to discover the inexhaustible source of strength and peace that has always been available within us, waiting patiently for our recognition and conscious participation. If you've been feeling drained by life's constant demands, if you sense that there must be a more sustainable way to meet your responsibilities, whilst maintaining inner peace and authentic joy, then you're already responding to the call of divine consciousness that seeks to express itself through your unique circumstances and contributions. This isn't just another energy management technique or stress reduction strategy. It's an invitation to discover your deepest identity as an expression of the infinite source that sustains all existence, and can flow through your individual life in ways that serve both your own fulfillment and the healing of our world. I'd be deeply honored if you'd join our exploration by subscribing to this channel. But what touches my heart even more is knowing that your own journey of discovering strength from divine consciousness contributes to humanity's collective awakening to more sustainable and loving ways of living together. What aspects of modern life have left you feeling most drained and exhausted? And where have you glimpsed moments of unexpected energy and peace that hint at the deeper source waiting to be consciously accessed? The ultimate revelation of learning to draw strength from the silent power of divine consciousness is the discovery that what we initially seek for personal relief from exhaustion gradually becomes a pathway for contributing to the healing and transformation of the collective human condition. As individuals who operate from this deeper source naturally become beacons of peace and vitality that inspire and support others who are struggling with their own experiences of depletion and overwhelm. This transformation extends far beyond individual energy management to encompass conscious participation in the evolution of human consciousness toward forms of life and society that support rather than exhaust the human spirit, creating sustainable patterns of work, relationship, and creative expression that honor both our finite human needs and our infinite spiritual potential. The maturation of this practice reveals that the divine consciousness we learn to access is not a personal resource to be hoarded or managed for private benefit, but rather the very fabric of existence itself, interconnected, field of awareness and love that connects all beings and all phenomena in patterns of mutual support and creative collaboration. As we develop facility in drawing upon this source, we naturally begin to serve as conduits through which this healing energy can reach others who may not yet know how to access it directly. Our presence becomes therapeutic, not through anything we do or say, but simply through the quality of consciousness we embody and share through ordinary interactions and activities. This understanding transforms our entire relationship with service and contribution, revealing that the most effective way to help others is often through maintaining our own connection to divine source rather than depleting ourselves through anxious effort to fix or rescue those who are struggling. The parent who remains centered and peaceful during family crises provides more genuine support than one who becomes emotionally overwhelmed by others' difficulties. The friend who listens from inner stillness offers more healing presence than one who tries to solve problems through advice or analysis. The community member who acts from conscious connection to universal love contributes more to collective well-being than one who serves from guilt, obligation, or the need to prove their worth through sacrificial giving. Perhaps most remarkably, this approach reveals that the challenges and demands that initially exhaust us can become doorways to discovering ever deeper levels of divine strength and wisdom when approached with appropriate understanding and practice. The health crisis that forces us to slow down and reassess our priorities becomes an invitation to discover forms of healing and vitality that transcend purely physical approaches. The relationship conflict that drains our emotional energy becomes a catalyst for developing capacities for unconditional love and wise communication that serve not only the immediate situation, but all our future interactions. The financial pressure that creates anxiety about security becomes an opportunity to develop trust in the abundance that flows naturally when we align our activities with authentic purpose and conscious service. The practical sustainability of this way of living becomes evident through the gradual emergence of what Sri Aurobindo called effortless effort, the capacity to meet all necessary responsibilities and engage fully with life's opportunities, whilst maintaining the inner stillness and peace that connects us with inexhaustible sources of energy and creative intelligence. This doesn't mean that all activities become easy or that we never experience challenge or difficulty, but rather that we develop the capacity to remain connected to our deeper source of strength even during demanding periods, allowing us to respond to situations from wisdom and love, rather than being overwhelmed by stress and reactive emotion. The collective implications of this individual transformation become apparent as we recognize that every person who learns to operate from conscious connection to divine consciousness contributes to the emergence of social forms and cultural patterns that support rather than exhaust human potential. The business environment where someone works from authentic presence and conscious service gradually influences organizational culture toward values and practices that honor both productivity and human well-being. The educational setting where someone teaches from connection to divine intelligence naturally fosters learning. Environments that inspire curiosity and creativity rather than competition and conformity based on fear and scarcity. The evolutionary dimension of this practice points toward what Sri Aurobindo envisioned as humanity's next stage of development, the emergence of individuals and communities that operate from spiritual consciousness, whilst remaining fully engaged with practical responsibilities and creative opportunities. This represents not an escape from the challenges of contemporary existence, but a transformation of our capacity to meet these challenges from sources of wisdom, strength, and compassion that can address problems at their roots rather than merely managing symptoms or temporary solutions that create new difficulties elsewhere. The integration of divine consciousness with daily life creates a natural rhythm of expansion and expression that sustains itself without effort or strain, like breathing that happens automatically when we're healthy and relaxed. The morning connection to inner silence naturally flows into conscious engagement with the day's activities. The challenges that arise become opportunities for deeper surrender and trust in universal intelligence. The evening reflection and gratitude complete the cycle by acknowledging how divine grace has operated through even the most ordinary moments and difficult circumstances. The ultimate recognition that emerges through sustained practice is that exhaustion and overwhelm are not personal failures or unavoidable consequences of modern living, but rather signals that invite us to remember and return to our true nature as expressions of infinite consciousness temporarily manifesting through finite forms for the purpose of conscious evolution and creative service. This remembrance brings not only personal renewal, but contributes to the collective awakening that our world desperately needs. If humanity is to navigate current challenges and fulfill its potential for conscious cooperation and planetary stewardship. As we conclude this exploration into drawing strength from the silent power of divine consciousness, my heart overflows with deep appreciation for every soul who recognizes that the exhaustion and overwhelm of modern life are not permanent conditions to be endured, but invitations to discover more authentic and sustainable ways of living that honor both our human limitations and our divine potential. The pathway that Sri Aurobindo illuminated over a century ago has never been more relevant or urgently needed than in our current moment, when the acceleration of change and the complexity of global challenges require forms of human consciousness that can remain peaceful and creative under unprecedented pressures. If these insights about divine consciousness as a source of inexhaustible strength have touched something real in your own experience. If you can sense the possibility of meeting life's demands from a place of inner peace and authentic power, rather than stress and depletion, then you're already walking the path toward the kind of sustainable spirituality that serves both individual well-being and collective healing. I would be deeply moved if you'd continue this exploration with us by subscribing to our channel. But what inspires me most is hearing about your own discoveries along this journey of conscious living. What experiences have taught you the most about the difference between personal effort and divine support? How have you found ways to remain connected to inner peace whilst meeting demanding responsibilities? What moments have shown you glimpses of the inexhaustible energy that becomes available when we align with deeper sources of strength and wisdom? Please share your experiences, insights, and questions in the comments below. Your journey of discovering divine consciousness as a practical source of renewal and strength illuminates possibilities for all of us who are learning that true spirituality doesn't separate us from life's demands, but transforms our capacity to meet them with grace, effectiveness, and sustainable joy. This exploration isn't just about managing energy more efficiently. It's about recognizing that we live in extraordinary times when individual awakening to divine consciousness can contribute directly to the emergence of more conscious and compassionate forms of human civilization that support the flourishing of all life, rather than the exhaustion and exploitation that characterize so much contemporary existence.